Well, now, let's be honest about our gut reaction to Jesus' teaching in today's gospel. What exactly is he telling us to do here? If someone robs you, don't try to get it back. If someone punches you, act like you like it. Always lend your money to ungrateful people whom you know won't give it back. Be kind and courteous to those who have hurt you, or better yet, to those who have hurt someone you love. Never judge or condemn anyone, no matter what they do. Well, I don't know about you, but my gut reaction to this teaching was this. It would seem that in order to be a follower of Jesus, we have to become human doormats. Just lay down and let whoever wants to walk all over us. Now, St. Paul tells us in the second reading today just why we tend to react like that at first. You see, when you and I get caught up in the earthly concerns for survival, self-preservation, and the struggle to protect and defend our rights or our needs, there's no way that we can possibly comprehend Jesus' teaching as anything else but a call to become human doormats. Right? But St. Paul further reminds us that even though the earthly, with its drive for survival and self-preservation, came first, that we are also called and transformed by God's grace into heavenly creatures whose purpose transcends our primitive concerns for survival, whose primary objectives as life-giving spirits is to manifest the likeness of the Heavenly One, whose image we already are. Let me tell you a story that illustrates this for us. There was a famous monastery which had fallen on very hard times. Formerly, its many buildings were filled with young monks, and its big church resounded with the singing of chants. But now it was deserted. People no longer came there to be nourished by prayer. A handful of old monks shuffled through the cloisters and praised their God with heavy hearts. On the edge of the monastery woods, an old rabbi had built a little hut. He would come there from time to time to fast and pray. No one ever spoke with him, but whenever he appeared, the word would be passed from monk to monk. The rabbi walks in the woods. And for as long as he was there, the monks would feel sustained by his prayerful presence. One day, the abbot decided to visit the rabbi and to open his heart to him. So after the morning Eucharist, he set out through the woods. As he approached the hut, the abbot saw the rabbi standing in the doorway, his arms outstretched in welcome. It was as though he had been waiting there for some time. The two embraced like long-lost brothers. Then they stepped back and just stood there, smiling at one another with smiles that their faces could hardly contain. After a while, the rabbi motioned the abbot to enter. In the middle of the room, there was a wooden table with the scriptures open on it. They sat there for a moment in the presence of the book. Then the rabbi began to cry. The abbot could not contain himself, and he covered his face with his hands, and he began to cry too. For the first time in his life, he cried his heart out. The two men sat there like lost children, filling the hut with their sobs and wetting the wood of the table with their tears. After the tears had ceased to flow and all was quiet again, the rabbi lifted his head. "You and your brothers are serving God with heavy hearts," he said. "You have come to ask a teaching of me. I will give you a teaching, but you can only repeat it once. After that, no one must ever say it aloud again." The rabbi looked straight at the abbot and said, "The Messiah is among you." For a while, all was silent. Then the rabbi said, "Now you must go." The abbot left without a word and without ever looking back. The next morning, the abbot called his monks together in the chapter room. He told them that he had received a teaching from the rabbi who walks in the woods, and that this teaching was never again to be spoken aloud. Then he looked at each of his brothers and said, "The rabbi said that one of us is the Messiah." The monks were startled by this saying. What could it mean? They asked themselves. Is Brother John the Messiah? Or Father Matthew? Or Brother Thomas? Am I the Messiah? What could this mean? They were all deeply puzzled by the rabbi's teaching, but no one ever mentioned it again. Well, as time went by, there was a gentle and wholehearted human quality about them. The monks began to treat one another with a very special reverence. It was hard to describe their gentleness and wholeheartedness, but easy to notice. They lived with one another as men who had finally found something. But they prayed the scriptures together as men who were always looking for something. Occasional visitors found themselves deeply moved by the life of these monks. Before long, people were coming from far and wide to be nourished by the prayer life of the monks. And young men were asking once again to become part of the community. Now, in those days, the rabbi no longer walked in the woods. His hut had fallen into ruins. But somehow or other, the old monks who had taken his teaching to heart still felt sustained by his prayerful presence. You see, brothers and sisters, the saints and mystics and the teachers of our faith have been proclaiming this great mystery for more than 2,000 years now. The mystery of who and what we all are at the very core of our being. That you and I are, in fact, what we eat and drink during our celebration of Eucharist. The body and the lifeblood of Christ. And so the core of Jesus' teaching in today's gospel then, is that we are all one body in Christ, all intimately connected one to another. And not just Catholics, but intimately connected to everyone. And as we grow in our realization that we and all of humanity are connected in Christ, we will begin to see those who mistreat or harm us, and even those who hurt the ones that we love, in a new light. And that, my friends, is why the rabbi instructed the monks to never say it aloud again. Now, why would he say that? Well, you see, it's because this truth cannot transform the church or renew the face of the earth if it gets reduced to a mental concept or a faith statement or an orthodoxy, which some people believe in and others deny. You see, these are poor substitutes for the living reality that is revealed by the attitudes and actions of our lives. Just consider our first reading as a prime example of this. Now, you see, Saul was intent on hunting David down to destroy him. And David knew full well what Saul had in mind for him. But what was David's attitude towards Saul when he finally got the chance to get him first? Today, though the Lord delivered me into your grasp, it delivered you into my grasp, I would not harm the Lord's anointed. You see, David realized that both he and Saul, like Christ, were anointed sons of God. Both of them brothers who were intimately connected. And that reality transcended David's instinct for survival and self-preservation and enabled him to be rather a life-giving spirit, offering peace and forgiveness and healing to his brother Saul. My sisters and brothers, in just a few moments, you and I will approach this altar to receive what we are, Christ for the world. As we leave this celebration today, we take Christ with us, in us, as us, to everyone we encounter, friends and enemies alike. What does this mean? What will Christ's life become in you and me this week? Will he spend this week caught up in a struggle for survival and self-preservation, for fear of becoming someone else's doormat? Or will Christ in you and me transform us into heavenly creatures who are life-giving spirits bearing the image of the heavenly one and bringing peace, forgiveness, and healing to a world that is starving, literally starving and dying for lack of our presence as Christ within it. The choice is yours and mine. What will we do? What will we do?